Hello and welcome to Sharing Needles with Friends, episode number 25. This was a very exciting episode for Derek and I. We actually had the chance to speak with Ben Green, who is the guitarist for the band Fairweather, who played a very, very large part in inspiration in our early 18 to 20-ish years when we were starting to form bands of our own. The first Fairweather record, If They Move, Kill Them, which was released in 2001, was shortly before Derek and I started making music of our own in bands. So it was a very influential record for us. And they have a fantastic catalog of music. They had the Alaska EP that came out in 2002, and then Lusitania, which came out in 2003. And between 2003 and 2014, there was nothing. They broke up. They took some time and stepped away from it. But luckily for us, in 2014, they got back together and recorded a new record, actually at Ben Green's new studio that's been around for about a year called Studio V in Northern Virginia, which we will get into in the podcast episode itself. But just to kind of set this up, it was a very amazing interview for us to get to do because it was with someone who truly, inspired our growth as musicians and has gone on to do many, many, many other amazing things. This was actually the first time that Ben has ever used Skype, so we appreciate him for, bearing with us and downloading it and going through all of the trouble of getting that set up just to kind of give us this little chat. So, I'm going to go ahead and stop talking so that we can get to what everyone is here to listen to, which is our fantastic interview with the amazing Ben Green of Fairweather. Enjoy.
1, 2, 3, 4.
This is the first time I've ever used Skype, so please forgive me.
Oh, it's totally cool.
I'll tell you what, it doesn't get any less weird.
That's true. We've done this many, many, many times, and it's still an awkward medium. But you know what? I'm glad Skype exists because
Me too.
it makes
Cool,
things...
yeah, me too. So just, bear with me, but I appreciate your, your understanding.
Not a problem, man. How's everything going in your world?
Good. I'm just here at my studio doing some work, wrapping up for the day.
Nice.
And probably be heading home in a little bit. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
I saw that. Studio V, is that what it's called?
Yeah, I've got a place out here out by Dulles Airport. In it's Northern Virginia. It's about 30 minutes or so from downtown DC.
Man, your studio looks absolutely beautiful. I was looking at it earlier today, flipping through the pictures. You've put some major work into that, man. It looks phenomenal.
Oh, cool! Thanks. Yeah, it's slowly accumulating gear.
That's awesome.
So I just picked up a Hammond M3 organ that I've got to do a little bit of maintenance on. I can't get the tone wheel, working, but I think with a little bit of love and care, I can get the thing going again.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thanks. It's a cool place. It's a big versatile space.
Yeah.
So
I think the main thing is it looked pretty cozy, and that's
Exactly.
one thing that I definitely look for if I'm ever recording music is some place that looks inviting.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm glad it came across that way. Appreciate it.
How many years have you had that kind of up and running?
Just turned 1 year old in May.
Oh,
and
nice.
Actually, the Fairweather record we were really the first client in the door.
Nice.
I got the stuff dropped into the desk and got everything wired up, and we had a session at like 1:30, 2 o'clock the next day. So
Wow.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
So you literally had everything set up and then bam, on to recording the record. That's
yeah. Well, it opened a little later than I.
doesn't it always?
Yeah, it was sort of like an 18-month build out, so it took a long time, and but so we had to push start times back a few weeks, but I made it work. So.
Man.
Yeah.
That was I was wondering about, in your kind of downtime in between records, which was a large downtime.
Yeah, what was that, 8 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah.
What was everyone kind of doing in between that time? Were you doing production and this kind of stuff, or
playing in other bands or anything like that?
Yeah, well, I can tell you a little bit. When we stopped, I think that was the end of 2003. Is I think when we ended. I didn't do a whole lot of music stuff right off the bat, but Peter and Shane, they started a band called Olympia, and they did a record for Equal Vision, or a Hope Division. I guess it was a subsidiary of Equal Vision.
Yeah.
And they played a lot, did a lot of shows, and I can't remember when they stopped playing, but they were pretty active. I did a lot of I started doing recording. Actually, Jay and I did a couple records together for some bands in DC, and started getting into that as time went on. And over the past 8 years, just accumulated more stuff and continued to do that kind of work over and over and over again.
That's awesome.
And it was good. I did a record under the name Seas, like oceans.
Yeah.
And put that out a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago or so.
Was this just kind of a solo record of your own?
Yeah, that was all me.
Oh, nice.
Okay. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another band in Canada, I think that took the name, but I'm a guy in U.S. In the United States that has that name.
Well, I'm quite a fan of your guitar playing, so I'm sure that that project is super awesome.
It's interesting. It's not a whole lot like Fairweather to the heavy degree,
right?
Yeah.
It's pretty. Sort of spacious and relaxed type music, a little bit more blues and folk influenced.
Oh man, that's always good.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you still do any solo stuff at all right now?
I haven't. I would love to, and I have ideas for stuff, but I just haven't had a lot of time to get into it. And but yeah, I'd like to. I have another record or set of songs that I think works with Seas as the vehicle for that. So I'll have to, kind of get my act together a little bit.
That's awesome.
Make that work. Yeah.
So what made you guys, after such a long period of time, did you guys technically break up or kind of go on a hiatus to where you knew you could bring it all back together whenever and if you decided to revisit it?
No, in 2003 it was a definitive breakup.
Yeah. Okay.
It honestly, it wasn't really because we're all very, very good friends.
Yeah.
It wasn't really any kind of personality conflict or anything like that. We all, in fact, for Olympia, they it was Peter and Shane playing together, and Seas. When I do that, it's basically everybody who's in Fairweather except for
nice.
Jay. So, we're all very tight. But in 2003. We had it was a pretty weird time for us. You guys
were hitting it pretty hard in that time and before. I mean, it seemed like you guys toured a lot.
We did. We toured a lot. We did a lot of shows, and we put out Lusitania, and it was sort of like this weird, weird moment in time where we had spent a lot of time putting this thing together. Yeah. And we really were very, very pleased with this record, and it came out, and really not a lot of people knew how to digest it. They didn't really know what to think of the thing.
That's crazy. I remember when that came out, and I was in love with that record just because of what direction you guys took and how different it was from If They Move, Kill Them. And it just had, I guess, more layers, and it had more of a broad spectrum of sound that I didn't expect. I don't think that I expected you guys to put out If They Move, Kill Them again.
Right.
But when it came out, my mind was blown by that record.
Oh, cool, man. Thanks a lot. I will say that it was disheartening. We felt. I mean, that record sounds exactly like we wanted it to. I mean, there's really nothing on there that I would ever have any problem with. I think it's fantastic the way it came out. It was just it was so clearly, realized, and everything sounded the way we wanted to. Jay Robbins was great working with on it.
Yeah,
and it was. I felt like it was of of all the things I've ever done, art or music or whatever, one of the most successfully realized things I've ever been a part of. But, it came out and, it was either, too weird and too serious for pop punk kind of stuff or whatever. And it wasn't, hard enough for hardcore shows. So, we played both. We did tours with like American Nightmare and Give It the Ghost and The Bled, real heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And those were not successful for us at all. Yeah. And we did other tours. Movie Life tour, we did some with those guys that did really well. We like those guys. The RX Bandits tour we did that year.
Oh man, I loved those guys.
Yeah.
Great guys, incredible band. We got along very well with them. Still good friends with them today. So it was just we were just kind of sticking out, and nobody knew what to do, and it was sort of disheartening. And we got finished with some tough tours that weren't really that great, and it's honestly hard to say exactly what our mindset was at the time.
Absolutely.
Sure, it just sort of wore you down.
Yeah, it was a while ago, but I remember feeling like exhausted.
Yeah.
And feeling just like I didn't want to look at another venue. I didn't want to look at another itinerary. I didn't want to be on the road. I didn't want to go out and play to people that weren't real interested.
Right.
And I think, we made a decision. Just say let's call it today. Before this gets real bitter and annoyed.
Yeah. Been there.
At that point in time in 2003, I mean the pop punk emo scene. I mean that's all they wanted to hear, And if you had that first album, then they wanted that same album again, probably, Yeah,
and you can't blame people for that. I mean, I definitely understand it. In retrospect, we probably should have changed our name after if they moved like nobody from that record is on any of the other ones except for Jay and I.
Yeah,
we're the founding guys. And so I don't know, but we kept it going. And, I think that there's some things if they move Kill 'Em, the songs on there, I wrote those songs when I was like 18 years old, and it's the first sort of, real loud, fast guitar music that I'd really been a part of. So you make quick strides in growth when you're that age, and when you get your first thing behind you, your first record, your first demo or whatever.
Yeah.
The next thing you do, you move quickly through things.
Absolutely.
And you can't blame people for hearing one thing, I guess, and then hearing something a couple years down the road and being like, well, who are these guys?
That's true, and I'm sure a lot of people have revisited the record, since that time. Like especially now that your newest self-titled record came out, which we'll get to that in a second because I love this record.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But I'm sure that since then, a lot of people have maybe gone back and listened to it and thought, oh shit, maybe I judged this unfairly in my youth, or when I was a little bit younger.
I get that impression from hearing people talk. I think I definitely hear things like people saying that. So that's good to hear. I think people have learned to like that Lusitania record in its own right.
Yeah.
It's such a monster of a record. It sort of, I think it stands on its own regardless of what's around it.
Absolutely.
In terms of what we did before or what we did after, it is such a clearly specific thing. And to me, it's a picture of a band in a particular state with us. Us as people. Yeah. It so clearly feels like, to me, it just so clearly feels like a, I don't know. It's like a snapshot of a long group of feelings and emotions and tension and things.
Mm-hmm. So that's great to have and great to look back on. Me and Gene have been in bands together forever, and I can just listen back to our old recordings and records and stuff and just be like, holy shit, I remember that.
What were we thinking during that part?
Yeah. Why did I scream like that?
Yeah.
Well, you had to.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It was part of it.
But no, sure. So many bands, I feel like they stay in this mentality of making the same record over and over again, and that's that I was happy that you guys didn't do, and I liked your growth between if they move Kill 'Em and can't say it, Lusitania, and with this new album, it sounds different than the other two.
Absolutely.
And I love it as well. So, I mean, bravo is pretty much what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean...
Yeah, I think we always have the desire to kind of, there's something about, the group of guys that, no matter what kind of music we're doing or what the stuff sounds like, when we all, get in a room together and play together, it sounds like us.
Exactly.
It sounds like Fairweather to me, no matter what the vibe is.
Exactly.
It's like, the way Shane hits his drums. I mean, the unifying thing is definitely Jay. He can it sort of links everything together. His vocals are so specific.
Absolutely. They're phenomenal. His voice is unbelievable. Like the range he has is just, it's crazy.
Yeah. And he's gotten stronger and stronger and more expressive, over the past, since like whatever, 2000 or whenever the first record came out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, he's got a real wide range of things he can pull off.
Yeah. And on this new record, especially, the way that you guys started the record with Carte Blanche, that's one of my favorite songs on this record. And for me, it almost feels like you guys are channeling a little bit of the old school, DC hardcore bands mixed with what your sound is. Like, I could be way off on that, but that's kind of what I got the first time I listened to that song was, this is definitely a hardcore direction, at least, for that song. And there's pieces of it, throughout the record. Were you guys, was the writing process on this record completely different than, obviously years had passed, so things definitely changed, but it feels like you were pulling from different places, I think, on this record. And it shows, especially right off the bat from the first song.
Yeah. When we, after so long kind of not playing regularly together with these guys, we wanted to play loud, fast music again.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of people might have expected us to, sound like, Spaceman 3 or something like that, some like, spaced out kind of thing.
Catherine Wheel.
Yeah, we really just wanted to play, I've always thought of us as a punk band. I think most of us think of us that we're just a punk band. And so, we wanted to be exploring that type of music. Again, it just was very natural. We got back together and started playing fast music, and these are the songs we wrote.
That's
so
awesome.
That record, that song is sort of like, the name Carte Blanche.
Exactly.
It's like the whole idea is, okay, we have such a chip on our shoulders about people not liking something we did because it doesn't sound like the thing before. So we said, let's just blow it out of the water, and then we'll have Carte Blanche to do whatever we want for the rest of the record.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit of a.
That's pretty clever.
It's a little tongue in cheek sort of thing like that. But yeah, that song is an opener, man. It's fast, it's blistering, it's like aggressive, but it's melodic, and those big oohs and stuff that come in at the end with Jay. It's just that's like Fairweather, man.
Absolutely.
That vibe is so specific. Like, it just makes me think it's such a quintessentially Fairweather feeling at the end of that song. So yeah, it's cool, and it's funny. We batted around the different songs to release, as teasers for the record, and really that one was the funniest one to put out.
Yeah. I just remember, just hearing that song first, obviously because it's the first song, but before the record was released, I can't remember who exactly it was, but someone was streaming the record, and I remember getting super excited because, like I said, I've always been a really big Fairweather fan, especially, since 2001, which is so insane to think.
Yeah, I know. That's insane that album came out in 2001.
It really is. But, the second I hit play on that song and I heard the opening, I was like, holy shit, what? Oh my God, this is going to be maybe the best record in such a long time. You really did find a killer way to kick off this record because, it grabbed my attention and it held me there for the duration of the record. It's
that's cool.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely appreciate that. It's the sound of like 8 years of tension being.
Yeah. I think it came through appropriately.
Absolutely.
Have you all been touring with this new material a lot, or are you planning on doing any touring anytime soon?
No, most likely not. If something came along that made a lot of sense for us to do, I think we would. But we've been just playing shows here and there for things that make sense for us. We're sort of scattered.
Yeah.
Jay just moved to Texas.
Wow.
He lives in Houston right now. Shane he and his wife just had their second child. So, and I just opened his business a year ago. So it's a little tough for us to get to get out there and do real long types of stretches of things. Not to say we wouldn't if the right thing came along to get us out there doing that. We've got a van, so that's pretty easy.
If Cat's Music here in Knoxville called you, this place called,
what's that?
It was this place called Cat's Music, which is the first place that Derek and I saw you guys back in 2001. It was a tiny record and CD store. And that was the first time that I had seen you guys, and you were playing with Glass Eater. And I mean, I don't know how you guys. I saw you guys again when my parents lived in St. Louis at the Creepy Crawl, I believe.
Oh yeah, sure, Creepy.
And I think that was with Zao on that tour. But the Cat show, it's such a tiny space, and
I've never even heard of them doing other shows.
Me
there.
either. Like I never had seen a show there prior to that, and then you guys came and just kind of you killed it. I mean, there were tons of people there. I don't even know if you remember that show because it was such a random place that I would imagine it would maybe stick out a tiny bit. But that was here in Knoxville, Tennessee, where we.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. I feel like we played a house show or something there too. I can't remember. We had a bass player who did a tour with us who was from Tennessee, from Knoxville, Gabe Miller.
Yeah, he was actually a friend of ours.
Okay, yeah, and I must have, he must have set some. I feel like we did a house show or something that he had helped set up or something like that on one of those tours or something like that. And Gabe, of course, you guys are tight with him. It's a real tragedy with him.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was real eerie too. There was a photograph that we had from I think the first tour that we did, or second tour or something like that. We played Crazy Fest. I think that was 2001 or something. Yeah. And I took a photo of the crowd. It was like a disposable camera or something from the. And it was like the biggest crowd I'd ever played in. And I was like 18, 19 years old. And I saw the picture, I guess it was uploaded or somebody has it and they uploaded it to our Facebook page or something. And boy, there's Gabe Miller right there, right in the front row.
Wow.
Yeah, it's weird. Gave me chills.
I'd say so.
That's unfortunate. Yeah. That's crazy. That's really crazy.
Yeah, it was a really, really, really unfortunate thing to happen.
Yep.
But we'll move past that.
Sure.
But yeah, actually, that show that I saw you guys at the Creepy Crawl, Gabe was playing, and you, I actually hung out with you guys a little bit after the show. That was one of the. I think that was when I realized how did they play at Cats, because there was so much energy on stage that thinking back to that other show in this tiny cramped space, I was like, how was that pulled off at all? Because you guys definitely had some energy, which is exciting to see always.
Well, we definitely played some small places. I'll tell you that. We had toyed around with the idea of doing a tour of just house shows.
Oh, nice.
Obviously, that would have been pretty tough to do.
Yeah.
And, but we had a lot of, I still remember we did some tour. I can't remember what year it was, but we played in, I think it was Syracuse. We played a basement. It was a fantastic show. I mean, just incredible. A house show. I mean, just like sweaty.
And,
of course.
Love them.
Completely chaotic and real fun. Great people running the place. And the next day we had to play this, I think it was CMJ or something like that. And we played at this place in Times Square. Like literally the next night we went from a basement.
Oh man.
Place in Times Square, and there's this guy was loading us in, and he said, "Hey, where did you guys play last night?" I said, "Well, we played a basement in Syracuse." And he said, "All right, welcome to the big leagues."
Oh man,
I remember just being like, "Oh, geez."
Yeah,
I would rather be in that basement.
Yeah, exactly.
If I recall, it was a weird show because it was some of those shows are sort of like industry music.
Right.
And there's, maybe like a few people on the floor actually watching the bands play, and most of the folks are back, not really a part of it. And so it was just interesting contrast. But yeah, we played tiny little places, even on later in our career as we had.
I think it helps you connect with your crowd and your fans a lot better when you're playing, and it doesn't even have to be a super small place like a basement, but just the smaller clubs and smaller venues, bars. Like that really, I think, brings an attachment to the listeners and the fans more so than seeing someone at fucking Wembley Stadium or something, somewhere so huge that you can I think I can see the bass player from here right over there, look.
It sort of makes you approachable, and it makes you feel like you can have a connection with the band, and that's what a lot of fans want to do.
Yeah, and I think we were real comfortable in that environment. I think we knew how to play at smaller and medium-sized places. With a giant stage, we didn't know what to do. We were walking around,
Yeah. I guess I'll run over there and then run back. All right.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't do real well on those big. We had a bunch of big shows back then, and they were cool. But we really at least there's videos and stuff that I can watch, on YouTube and stuff of us playing. Little places and things back then, and it's pretty cool to watch. We really, I don't remember a lot of the shows, but you learn how to kind of be you learn how to be a unit of guys, like a machine.
Absolutely.
I remember, recently I was watching some video from some college or something we played, and I didn't even know what I was playing. I was like not even playing notes, but the song sounded cool. It was just like chaos, but it was all tight because we'd been playing, we'd been on tour, we've been playing show after show after show after show. So, somehow that sort of thing comes across pretty well, small and medium-sized venues, but, big stages and stuff where everybody can hear what you're playing. When you're not playing notes, it doesn't sound very good.
Yeah, exactly. Things can kind of get lost in there a little bit.
Those guitars are sort of singled out on those big stages.
Yeah. Exactly. I want people to hear what I'm playing or not playing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you got back in the studio to do this album, did it feel natural? Like once you guys got back together to do the album, was it like, okay, well, here we go, this is a breeze, or did it take a little while to shake the rust off or something like that?
Yeah, no, it's not. It's this band is it's not easy. It's easy because it's fun and we're buddies.
Yeah.
But the actual songwriting process is very long.
Yeah.
It's not done by any person. It's done by the band.
Right.
Somebody will bring in a riff or a concept or something, and we'll sit there and argue about it and play it. It might take 6 months for a song to get actually wrapped up and some place where it needs to be. There's no main person that does anything. It really is a band, sort of hashing out, arguing, and working the points that. It's like everyone's got an angle, and we have to all kind of find a common angle with the idea, the aesthetic idea for the tunes we worked on, which is funny because it's like kind of dumb punk rock music, but
it's smart punk rock music.
There's definitely nuance in what's going on in it, and everyone, I think, for the most part, ends up about 60% happy.
Yeah.
And then
that's a good ratio. It's above 50.
As long as you're above 50, everything is fine.
Yeah, exactly. And then we move on, cross it off the list and move on and stuff. But the playing, this is like the greatest thing in the world.
Sure.
I love playing music with these guys.
Absolutely.
We are very, very close friends. And we know how to talk to each other. We know how to work the points that we're trying to get across in the songs, and it's great. We have a great time. So that stuff was not rusty at all. It's just the songwriting process is complicated and annoying.
Always,
yeah.
And so there's 10 tracks on this record. About how many did you guys record in anticipate or write in anticipation for recording this record? Did you guys just kind of stop there, or did you guys have a ton of stuff to kind of play with,
pick and choose?
Well, we had a couple other things going on that, it had just taken so long to actually write the stuff. It really took us a very long time. We all are pretty busy folks, and a lot of folks are out of town during this process, or et cetera, or building a place or whatever. But for really, when we got down to it, it was like, all right, well, we kind of got to get this done. So
Right.
let's go with songs that are finished. So there's some other stuff that's kind of half completed, and we got together with the songs that were about done. So we should just make this happen with these guys instead of messing around any longer. We'd already played. I think we'd played our reunion show and done a few other shows, and actually the reunion show we'd already had like 1 or 2 songs already written. When we got together.
Oh, cool.
We weren't even playing old songs when we first started getting together. We started writing right away.
That's amazing.
It was sort of like, let's do a reunion. We got in and we just started playing with riffs.
Yeah.
And we had to kind of convince ourselves that we needed to relearn the old song.
Maybe we should learn at least 3 or 4 of those old ones and play those. Maybe.
Exactly. Exactly.
Was this was this the same lineup for this album as Lusitania and the Alaska EP?
Close. The Lusitania and Alaska EP was really just a 4-piece. Shane did all the bass guitar recording, so he pulled double duty on bass guitar and drums. But while we were touring, we picked up a good friend, Ben Murphy, who played bass, and this was written with him, and he recorded all the bass stuff. So
that's awesome.
Just one additional member.
Yeah. I think it's been really cool that you guys have been with Equal Vision for so long, because they're such a rad label, and there's so many incredible bands that it's awesome to see, that you guys put out If They Move, Kill Them, and all the way through, still with the same label. And I think that there's something to me that is really cool about that, and shows that they are also, from what I could gather, a pretty amazing label, which, I've always looked up to them as, for pretty much anything they've put out. They're a solid, I guess that's a good way to put it, a super solid label. But
sure,
they got
I mean, those guys are fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely incredible. Dan is just an amazing guy. Dan Sanchot, EVR, Steve Wright. I mean, all those guys are just incredible. I sort of feel like we just hear so many horror stories about people in bands on labels that just treat them real poorly.
Yeah.
And they've have a lot of conflict, and
I've never heard a bad EVR story.
Yeah.
That's
never.
It's
never.
very
And
rare
I'll
that
tell
you hear a good story about a label.
Yeah, that's true. That is true in general.
We really put them, through the ringer with some stuff. I mean, the Alaska EP, this is a funny story. The Alaska EP, we had this real bright idea that, when we did that CD, we wanted a 4-page booklet, but we didn't want anything in the booklet. We wanted, it was like anti-image.
Yeah.
We're like, no, man, we're not,
That's so emo.
it's classic, early 20s, type of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, we had this very specific vision for it, and we sent them the design. They were like, "What is this? There's nothing in here."
There.
And we were like, "No, man, you don't understand. And we need this, and we need this paper, and we had all this specific stuff." And they sent it to the pressing plant, and the pressing plant called them. They're like, "I think you guys made a mistake here."
That's incredible.
And we got the CDs back, and the paper was kind of different. And man, I remember being like, "Dan, I can't believe you've compromised our vision. I can't believe it." And he was like, he just took it. And I apologize to him every time I see him about it. It's just so ridiculous. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. I mean, it's absurd. But I mean, they literally did everything that we could ever want. They're the kindest, most generous, wonderful people. They really believe in the people that are on their label. They put their full force behind them. They're a great group of people.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Well, we don't want to hold you up any longer, but I did want to ask one more quick question,
Sure.
which could be quick, or you can feel free to give us as long of an answer as you want. But so when you guys recorded this record, this was the first one that you guys kind of self-recorded at your studio.
Yeah.
Did you kind of have a different sense of freedom in recording by yourself as opposed to having kind of the rented studio time format? Did you guys have a better time maybe?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's a weird responsibility.
Yeah.
That I was definitely happy to do it. I mean, I felt like it only made sense, and I understand the way the band sounds.
Yeah.
A lot. And to me, when I listen to this record, of all the records we've ever done, it sounds the most like really what we sound like playing. I mean, and that's what we were looking for. There's nothing. There's no samples. There's no fake guitars or anything. I mean, it's just a record. And it really sounds like us. And that was one of the biggest sort of influences I think I was able to have. You take something to somebody else, even if you know them well. Sometimes their outside influence or their take on your band can put it somewhere, and that can be great. I mean, that's what you hire somebody that does that kind of work. I mean, but for this particular one, it was something that we didn't want to do.
Exactly.
And maybe another record, that we do in the future. There's definitely a chance we'd have somebody else, do the recording work on it. I would never have a problem with that. It wouldn't, I wouldn't be like offended or anything. Sometimes it helps you see things from a different perspective when you have somebody else sort of taking apart your actions and what you're doing and saying, hey, listen, maybe stuff should sound a little bit like this. It's helpful. It can be exciting to have someone else's take on it, someone who you've hired and who you trust.
Oh, absolutely. And, that's the hard part though, is someone that you trust, because I've in studio situations worked with so many people that, seem, they are afraid to kind of give you that, that criticism or that push. You do a vocal take and then come out and say, hey, so, how did that sound? Yeah.
How'd it sound to you?
It was good. Did you like it? Well, I mean, I felt okay, but I'm asking you, what did you think? So, I've worked with producers that weren't always willing to kind of give that, and you really need, and I think I read a quote somewhere at one point where someone said that your producer, in a way, in that setting and in that environment, needs to be your enemy, because you can't be buddy-buddy, because it's going to become too close and everything you do is going to be, oh, yeah, it's great, let's do it. Yeah. You need someone that's not afraid to tell you, I would do it again. I would do it again. And I've noticed a lot of producers that I've worked with personally don't really have that sort of mentality. And I feel like
I need that from time to time.
Me too, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting, the different styles of that kind of etiquette. I think a lot of people that do that for a living have very different methods and very different styles of that kind of etiquette, with their clients. And it's very interesting to, as a client, to have worked with different people. We did our first record with Brian McTernan. We did our, next records with Jay Robbins, both who have very, very different types of production, influence over the recordings. And I've always taken that as, more than anything, as a band, whoever is doing that for you, that type of work, that production work, you should try to suck as much out of it as possible to learn, to be better, because guys like that, obviously they're very talented.
Oh yeah.
And hopefully you go into a situation as a client realizing that, and being adversarial in a friendly sense, as opposed to, as opposed to combative. It's because some people, they get combative about their integrity, and they're like, oh, who are you? You're a stranger, but it's a job, and they're there to help you, clarify things, from a perspective that you've asked them to give to you.
Exactly.
And I think it's a really, I could talk about this for hours. I do it for a living myself, but it's a really interesting and exciting type of relationship to have with people who are really serious about an art. It's almost like my dad is he did really intense type of signal processing stuff, for digital signal processing. He built all kinds of systems for the Navy and the Air Force in the 70s. And when he was in a PhD program, you have an advisor, and your advisor works with you very, very, very closely and helps kind of like steer you towards things that your brain is capable of sort of unraveling. And I feel like a producer is kind of like an advisor for a PhD program. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they're there to help you make a product. And a snapshot of what you're trying to talk about or what you're trying to express, and it's really, really complicated. It's a really complicated process.
Yeah,
and it's amazing. It's good stuff. But yeah, for me, for this process, it was this type of work for this record was very straightforward in what it is that we needed, and I felt pretty confident that I was going to be able to work with the guys. It's almost like I was just playing another instrument.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I love the production on the album. It's
cool.
It's like it's produced, but it's not overproduced, and you still feel that raw live energy from it. And that's what I look for in albums, and that's usually some of my favorite albums I hear is when it's got that kind of production to it. So done.
That's cool. I really appreciate that. That's come through for you guys. Definitely. Yeah. It's you hear a lot of records that sound like there's nothing wrong with it, but for punk music they sound like commercial products.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean they sound.
And that cheapens
doesn't
it.
Sound like
it's so weird. You can throw all the money at it that you want, but if it doesn't have something that you can, I guess, kind of, connect with. And for us, growing up listening to bands like, Black Flag and Minor Threat, and, growing up in that age of, raw punk rock, it's hard for me to listen to something that has been polished to the point of, pristine, where it's just over the top. And there's a lot of records that, have come out in the past few years by tons of indie bands that I respect and love, but then I listen to it and I kind of, just the production itself can kind of make me.
Yeah. It's funny how much production can sway my thoughts on a certain album.
It's huge. Yeah. It's so huge. And yes, good songs are good songs, but they exist in spite of the way the stuff works. I still always at least kind of want the illusion of a band playing.
Right, exactly.
Even if it wasn't done that way, I still want to be fooled.
I mean,
that it
works for Daft Punk to make it sound like there's a bunch of robots playing music,
exactly.
But when I hear a rock band, I want to hear and know that there's an actual dude playing a guitar, just sweating like crazy, just pounding it out. Like I don't know. It's always going to be a personal opinion because I know tons of people that would prefer the overly polished stuff, and that's fine too because everyone's got opinions.
Their taste.
Absolutely, but for me, I just feel like there's a good medium in between that where you can have an amazing sounding record without compromising the energy and the emotion of that record.
It's like we were talking about Nirvana Nevermind the other day, and I mean that album is completely produced, but it's got this raw feeling to it still. So that's what I love about that album.
Yeah, it's because those performances were so great, and the you still have an illusion of a real performance no matter what. I mean, it's this raw, it's a record.
Yeah.
It's a record of a moment. Mm-hmm. It's a people say the word record and they forget that it's actually a record.
Right, exactly.
That's totally true.
of a thing that happened, of a thing that occurred in the world.
Yeah.
And, I think people, I don't know. I often have an angel and a devil on my shoulder when I'm doing records for other people. It's all about the client, but, one is the pure record and the other is the pure product. They're not mutually exclusive from each other, but
but they're going to sway one way or the other.
Yeah, there's a spectrum there to play with for sure.
Nice.
Well, Ben, we really, really appreciate you giving us some time.
Yeah, sure.
I speak for
thank you guys very much.
Speak for Gene and myself both. You were a very influential band for us, and we really love everything you've done. So, thanks again, man.
That's awesome. I really, really appreciate it. It means a lot. Thanks so much.
Yeah, man. Right. Thanks for giving us the time. We really appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Okay, take care.
Take it easy, Ben.